Good evening, Baltimore. This is James MacArthur, and I do thank you for joining me here. This is yet another one of my many social media experiments. You know, we're always trying new and different things. And I'm sorry, I kept you guys up pretty late here. And, I do these things late because well, several reasons. We're working out the kinks, and I'm actually hoping there aren't a lot of listeners while we do this, so we can get things worked out. Now, the Spreaker concept is not new. These guys, the founders, the inventors of this app, invited me to it. I think maybe over a year ago. There were a number of radio hosts that they wanted to be early, users of this thing and to kick it off and to do beta testing. Anyways, I'm not going to get into all of that. That was not the purpose of coming here. It is somewhat of a test, but I also do have real information that I want to share with you. I mean, I'm not just going to get on here and say testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. It's not that type of show. There's been a lot of changes going on in the local news scene as far as my role in it, the role of the website, and the role of Twitter, where most of you know me from. Of course, this program, there are some subscribers who are on here, and they're just people who love talk radio, people who are into this thing, separate from a lot of you who know me on Twitter. And speaking of which, I am monitoring my Twitter feed. So if you want to message me while I'm on the air live, you can holler at me right there. I will see it and I will respond. As a matter of fact, if anyone is hearing this and could go to my Twitter and just say, "Yeah, I hear you," that would be great. I love to know that somebody's listening when I'm talking. Oh, if no one is, then there's no point. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it really make any sound at all? Anyhow, of course, my Twitter is Balto Spectator. And if you're listening to this broadcast and you're not familiar, that is, well, it's almost my claim to fame. And I'm going to give you guys, in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to give a little bit of my background and my biography, stuff that I just haven't gone into on Twitter. It's 140 characters, and you try to keep things very much on point. It's soundbite talk, very focused, very on point, and you get right to it, or you tweet out a link. But tonight, I'm going to have a bit more of a conversation with you, and I'm going to open up on a few things. And from time to time, with some of the upcoming projects I have, I will get more into the personal side for those of you who are interested. And I get asked personal questions all the time. They're usually in a direct message or an email, or people text me. So I know that there's some interest. I'm a very private person, believe it or not, as open as I am with the Foursquare and the Twitter. I'm open to a point. I create the stage. I set the stage that I want so that all attention is there. So meanwhile, while you're looking there, I can slip out behind the props and go back behind the scenes. So anyhow, let's get into it. I'm seeing you guys on Twitter, and I appreciate it. Appreciate hearing from you there. Miss Shawnee says, "I hear ya." Mayor says, "Loud and clear." Awesome. Joe retweeted the link. Hey, you guys, thank you so much for coming here tonight, and thank you for all of your support that you have brought over the years in me doing this whole thing. Okay, let's get to it because we have, it's late. It's late and, we have limited time, so I'm going to get right down to business here. Where are we going with this thing? It is no secret to most of you that for some deeply personal reasons, I had pretty much retired from having anything to do with media. I have a big mouth, right? So I stayed on Twitter and I sounded off on topics that, are important to me. I live in this city, I own property in this city, and I just wasn't pleased with the way things were going. So, yes, I sounded off, but, I wasn't involved at the true professional media level. A lot of you who just came to know me on Twitter didn't know that, I attended just about every meeting at City Hall. weekly. I was a nuisance. I was a gadfly down there. Every press conference they had, I'm there. I'm asking the tough questions. I got in people's face. Bielefeld and I at the police department, we became good friends because I was there so darn much, writing articles for myself and for others, ghost writing things, writing news scripts for radio news people, not myself. My work has appeared in a lot more places than my name has, believe it or not. Even when I first started in talk radio, I had what we would call an assumed name, a nom de plume, because of privacy reasons. Quite frankly, this was a long time ago. The things we're able to do now, the simplicity and ease with which this technology allows me to reach thousands of people, I only dreamed of a couple decades ago when I first got into media. It's unreal that with a minimal small investment in equipment, any man off the street can get into this, tell his story, and be heard. And that's what the Baltimore Spectator is all about. Even the name Spectator, I chose very deliberately. I, I love Baltimore, but let's face it. I'm going to be honest. This place, I can't use profanity. We got problems here. We have big problems. And of course, I say that over and over again, but why do I say this? The hope is to inspire. The hope is to inspire folks to say, you know what, we do have problems, but we can do something about this. And part of the way you do things is to inspire others. Everyone has a different role, but I guess what's important is that you know that there is a role for you and you be willing to accept it and go forth and do what it is that you need to do. And I don't want to get too, spacey, esoteric, new agey sounding here, but this is serious business, folks. I mean, here we have children being killed here now at a higher rate than I've ever seen in my years covering crime here. We have girls being killed at a higher rate than I've ever seen here. I'm not an exaggerator. I'm not an alarmist. I mean, sometimes I use, colorful wording to get your attention, but this is a serious trend that's disturbing to me. And believe me, you're not going to hear it from the police department. They're not going to come out and say, yeah, this is a trend that's going in the wrong direction and we don't know why and we don't know how to turn it around. They're just not going to say that. They're not in the business of doing that. The whole object, of course, is to maintain the demeanor, maintain the veneer, the facade of, hey, everything is under control. But they're not, folks. Let's be honest. This girl, Aji Harrod, was found laying down on the street with her brains blown out, 2 blocks away from the police department. Does that sound like things are under control? Absolutely not. The young man who was just identified today, I don't have his name in front of me, who was killed on Old York Road Monday night, same thing, just found on the street corner, brains blown out, where a camera used to be. And, there's other cases. The stuff that's going on here, it keeps repeating itself. And I get the feeling that to the city government, these folks are disposable. They're expendable. Why try to save them? And that's very bothersome to me. It's the type of thing you see in the favelas in Brazil. It's the type of thing you see. Every third world country has its version of the expendables, the useless eaters. But this is America. One of the ballot issues that's coming up next month is the DREAM Act. And, the intention and the wording sounds quite noble, but here's the real deal. There are children born here from families that are here, multi-generational, and they have no idea what the American dream is right here in Baltimore, and they have no prospect of ever even being able to dream that dream. Life is so bleak. Who the hell is looking out for them? Who's going to take them by the hand and say, hey, you live in a land of opportunity, but there's rules to the game, and you got to play the game to win. Now, part of that game is getting out of high school for most people, but in Baltimore City, you have a 60% dropout rate. You see what I'm saying here? It's just like it creates these never-ending cycles of poverty, these never-ending cycles of violence, and we can't continue to just be reactionary to it all the time. But that's what city governments has been doing here. That's why you have grandmothers in their mid 30s, great grandmothers in their 40s, and it's just proven where that goes. You want to know who that kid who's gonna stick you up and mug you on the street corner is? He's probably the product of a 13-year-old mom who had no kind of guidance in his life at all. And this becomes everyone's problem because sure, you may not be strung out in a drug addict, but the kid who might, put the bullet in your chest is. And actually, folks, to be honest, this is not quite the direction I wanted to go in with this, but like I said, I do have a passion for this stuff. I have a bit of a law enforcement background. A lot of people are confused about my background. It's quite simple. I get bored easily. If I get into something and I feel I've done all I can do in it and I've learned as much as I can possibly learn, I will move along in a sense. My background is it's mixed. I dual tracked for quite a while working in one job, going to school for another. So I was able to, in the amount of time that the average person maybe worked on one thing, I worked on two, and just making plenty of good use of my time. I haven't really owned a TV probably since the 90s, which surprises a lot of people. I spend a lot of time reading, researching, observing, and you'd be surprised how much you can get done when you don't watch TV. Now, there's nothing wrong with TV. I'm not telling you to kill your TV or to throw it out, but you know that's what's worked for me. The BaltimoreSpectator.com, the little website I started a few years ago after some very, very disturbing incidents. I've often been accused of, well, being fixated and obsessed on crime. And it may seem that way, and perhaps it is that way a little bit, but really, it's a bigger picture, and that's one component. It's a component that I have some expertise in, some training, and some experience. But what got me started on this whole thing? Well, when one of my neighbors, who I was good friends with, died from a home invasion, he was shot like 9 times. When I came home, I was supposed, I saw the police there, and the shock came over my body once I realized someone I knew was just killed. And the scene was raw, it was fresh, and I looked into his house, and I literally saw his brain matter splattered all over the wall. Something something happened inside me. Something really happened inside me. You know, and then there were several more killings. I don't know why these things happen to me. I don't know why I've been so close to so much of this stuff. People don't believe me when I say I literally run into stuff continuously here in Baltimore. I do. I don't listen to a scanner. I don't get information and say, hey, I'm going to run to this scene. I mean, of course, I have tipsters, but quite honestly, I have this uncanny dumb luck of literally just stumbling across stuff, whether I'm out on one of my walks or I'm driving in the car. I have broken more news items here in Baltimore um, just by happening to be the first guy there. And the other guys, eventually take it and run with it. And, do they give me credit? Absolutely not. Do I care? No. What I care about, which has been the motto of the BaltimoreSpectator.com for the last several years since the start, is truth to the masses. I see myself as an agitator. I often jokingly call myself the agitator in chief. And that is, if I can get you talking about something, get other people talking about something, and then the big boys, the mainstream media, with a much broader reach than myself, pick up on it and run with it, now the truth gets out. It's not about me. It's not about getting credit. It's about seeing the truth get out. If you go through my list of followers on Twitter, you will see many familiar media faces, well-known reporters on TV, print journalists, producers, and directors. There's a reason they follow me. Some of them will admit openly that and have that they follow me because they know that I have a good feel for the pulse of what goes on in the city. And there are some, by the way, who are real sneaky. You know, you don't have to follow someone to know what's going on their Twitter. You can just open their page, and that way no one knows you're following. That's what a lot of the City Hall folks do. At first, a lot of them openly followed me, but, you know, it almost, I guess, became a stigma thing or a bit of pride. Oh, we can't be seen following the Baltimore Spectator. But oh boy, do they monitor. Believe me, I've gotten the phone calls when when you know, some people think I've gone too far or they felt particularly insulted by a statement I've made. I've gotten phone calls directly from City Hall. Like I often reference, I've been in court where a prosecutor attempting to string me up pulls out a phone book size ream of paper, and it's a printout of all my tweets, including one time I was in court in the morning. He had already printed out in the stack a tweet I made about an hour prior to court. It's unbelievable the level of monitoring that happens in our country these days, and Baltimore City at the local level is no different. I'm living proof of it. If I told you this stuff, it would scare you, but I like to have fun with it. I know they're watching. I know they're listening. I know they're monitoring. So, you know, I give them something to see. I guess it's a form of intellectual exhibitionism. Oh, you're going to watch? Well, hey, watch this. I got something for you, buddy. Oh, man. But, yeah, we're going to be using this format to do some fun stuff. If I seem vague, like in the newsletter message that I put out on the Spectator this morning, or even right now in the conversation, it's not because I'm unfocused. Far from it. It's because there's an old adage that says, you know, you don't let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. And for different reasons, I have to be very careful about laying out my plans for security reasons, for competitive reasons, for all sorts of stuff. The security thing that I have to deal with, you guys have no idea. I mean, oftentimes I do make light of it. It's fun to me. I make jokes about it. But it's a very real thing. There has been attempts on me before. If I tell you I've run into crime scenes quite randomly where somebody else did not have such a good day, that tells you how close I am sometimes. I've been covering a crime scene and heard gunfire right around the corner, and turns out somebody else was killed. Right there. Same gunman. He's there. I'm there. So there is the chance happening, the chance possibility of something unfortunate happening. And then there is the not so random, not so chance, like the time I came face to face with a hitman who, well, he realized I wasn't the person he was sent to go get, and, you know, had the kindness of telling me who he was looking for and asked me if I knew where, you know, where he could find this guy. And I said, no, I have no idea. And, you know, unfortunately for that victim, it wasn't good enough because a few hours later, the hitman, same one that came up to me, did find his prey. And that gentleman is no longer with us. You know, that's a story that's going in the book I'm working on. Like so many of these other crazy experiences I've had in just the last 10 years or so in Baltimore. You know, I'm not from Baltimore originally. I used to hang out here a long time ago. My wife, when we were dating, we used to come up here from the D.C. area as a place to go to. But about 10 years ago, I started to invest in property here, and I kept a home in D.C. and one here, and I went back and forth for a while, and eventually, you know, I enjoyed so much of the Baltimore experience. This is before I realized the dark side of it, that I just stayed here full time. Let me pause here because, you know, I'm an old radio guy, believe it or not, and you know, this is where I would ordinarily maybe open some lines and take some calls, but I can't do that. So again, you can ask me anything you want on Twitter. If something wasn't clear, I need to go backwards, sure. Or if you want to take me in another direction. There's only a few moments left here. And again, I do thank you for helping me with this experiment. More or less, this is a sound check for an upcoming show, so to speak. Many upcoming shows covering many topics. which are being researched and planned out as we speak, which will have me all over the city dealing with all sorts of stuff in the time that I have left here. And why do I say it like that? I'm absolutely not a fatalistic person, but I know, well, I'm not going to get into that now. Let's just put it this way. One of my favorite philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, said, since it is entirely possible that, at any moment you may depart from this earth, govern your life accordingly. Nobody knows. No one knows what's going to be their last act on this earth. I mean, some people, and no one likes to talk about this. Everyone, likes to think every day is going to bring another day and another day and another day, and life just goes on into perpetuity. But we all know that's not reality. But, you talk about the finite nature of man, and people say, "Oh, why are you so morbid? Why are you so dark?" And my retort would be, "Well, why is your head in the sand? Why are you dwelling in such an imaginary existence, a make-believe life? Let's deal with the firm realities that are before us." And, I had a late start. I was supposed to do this a couple hours ago. My mom called. Try to do that quickly. Try getting the elderly lady off the phone quickly, talking to her son. Good luck, especially one from the Caribbean. I'm telling you, it ain't happening. And then she called back again. Then I had these other calls. And, this never fails. Even when I did regular radio, as in hosting or co-hosting, when everybody knew what time I was supposed to be on the air, I still got calls during the show. I mean, I didn't pick it up, of course. The phone was on silent, but like, who's calling? And, I still bounce around from time to time. You may hear me on the C4 show as a guest, or, the Steiner show and these different shows. But, I had to walk away from doing the media thing. I had a lot of deeply personal things going on, and I also had reached a limit. My cup was full. You couldn't pour anything more into it. But obviously, if you're here listening to me tonight, you're well aware that I am starting to wade back into the waters. My editorial on the mayor, some people say I didn't go hard enough on her. But this editorial is by far becoming, it's the most read story I've done of the year. Well, actually, it's getting ready to approach all time on that particular website. So that tells me something. That tells me this is resonating with a lot of people. People are seeing it and passing it on, emailing the link to someone else, and that person sending it to someone else. And there are a lot of folks here in Baltimore City that are just not happy. Not happy with the direction things are going. Not happy with what's going on with leadership. But they don't know what to do about it. The election is already taken place. They've even extended, there's an additional year these folks get because of changing the date. And a lot of folks have just fallen into a deeper malaise, a deeper level of apathy, and they just throw their hands up in the air. But I'd like to think that folks like you, interactive people who get on Twitter, get into spirited discussions, read the papers a lot, read various news sources, dig into things. I'd like to think people like you are the ones that could actually make a difference in the city, the ones that can be the change makers. It doesn't take much. It certainly does not take a majority. That is an absolute myth forced upon people to discourage them. If you look at the very origins of this great country of ours, you will know that the guys signing the Declaration of Independence, the guys declaring independence, We're just a small few. The truth is, a large percentage of the early colonists did not want to break away from England. They thought that was nuts. Are you kidding? What are you going to do? These guys are taxing us to death. They want to control us from all the way across the Atlantic. So what? C'est la vie, that's life. No. A few people, a small group of guys meeting in a bar, for crying out loud, said, you know what? Life has got to be better than that. There's more to it than being a subject of royalty, than being a subject of a monarchy. And I think, and it's nothing personal, it's all about principle. I think Baltimore can be better than merely being subjects to Lady Stephanie with a let them eat cake attitude that I have been observing for years now. It didn't just start since she became mayor. A reluctant mayor nonetheless too. I honestly I don't think this woman would have ran for mayor on her own had things not played out the way they did with the whole Sheila Dixon debacle, the embarrassment that and she was thrown upon us, and of course in a one-party climate like Baltimore, once you're in as an incumbent, you're guaranteed almost getting reelected over and over again. And that's how we got Lady Stephanie. I have to make it abundantly clear again, it's nothing personal. The only thing that's personal is the hardship that so many people deal with in their personal lives living in the city, from living in the crime-ridden neighborhoods to the trash everywhere, to the poor city services, to the city that's constantly trying to rape you, it seems, with the red light tickets and the property taxes that are going up, the water bills that are going up. I mean, everywhere you look, the city's trying to put a squeeze on you. And is it any wonder that for the last several decades, the population continues to shrink and dwindle more and more, yet still in other counties in Maryland, they're seeing an increase. So obviously, it's not a regional trend, but clearly folks have identified there's some problems in this city, and they're voting with their feet. A lot of them still work here. They have no problem coming here for commerce, for their occupation, but they'll be damned if they lay their heads down to sleep in this city. Well, we're just about out of time in this broadcast here. Again, this was mostly a sound check, so to speak, a live dress rehearsal, but we're going to do some exciting stuff with this. I'll have you know that this broadcast I'm doing, I'm out in the field right now on 100% mobile equipment, and that was part of the test. Some of these broadcasts in the future are going to be done from events. Some of them may be done from right outside City Hall, perhaps in a hallway in City Hall. I've done that before. I did that with WOLV 1010. I stepped right outside a council chamber meeting in the hallway, and I went live on the air and gave a report and an update of what was going on. I love radio. I have so much fun with this stuff sometimes. But time to wrap up here. Couple minutes left. Anybody on Twitter, do you still hear me? And don't worry, I won't always be asking like that because I could care less. A lot of what we're doing on this will be for the purpose of recording it and having it archived and tagged and searchable and, well, immortalized and made a part of history. Well, that's going to be all, folks. Thank you for listening. And hope that the next time I do this, you'll join me again. As always, my name is James MacArthur. You know me as the Baltimore Spectator. And I'm always asking you, what's up, Baltimore?